I truly believe that if we all got to live like 3 lifetimes, we would all be successful no matter the starting point. The problem is that most people don't start learning until their late 30s, 40s, and 50s. They have spent their entire lives in a state of short-term thinking, in ignorance or in comparison or victim mentality, in a state of fear and wounding. And by the time that their eyes finally open to the power of accountability and they start to unpack everything that is now in the rearview mirror, it already feels like it's too late. It already feels like they are too far gone, like everyone else has it better, like their life is a failure, and all they can do at this point is plant seeds for apple trees that they will probably never see blossom, let alone bear fruit in their lifetime, which I imagine could be overwhelmingly disheartening. I get it. Why do all that work if you never get to reap the harvest? You missed the bus, you were washed up, throw in the towel. It's not like you can ever be a professional athlete now or become a fitness model, so why bother going through the pain and time and blood, sweat, and tears required to get into better shape? The house is already on fire, but you're sitting in there like, this is fine. I actually first started to feel this way myself in my early 20s. I would look around at other 20-year-olds that I knew who would spend every summer at their families' cottages at the lake, who seemed to constantly be traveling and partying and driving nice cars and having so many friends and living lives of abundance that I felt like my life could not even scratch the surface of. And social media did nothing but add jet fuel to the fire. And at that time, I was able to buy a townhouse, but I was also working 6 days a week for years, and I couldn't understand why it felt like I was working more than everyone else around me, but I was still behind everybody. I hated that feeling. So I began to give up. I decided that money was evil, that people who had money or wanted a lot of money were greedy and evil, and I decided I was going to give it all up. I was going to sell my place and go work as a volunteer for a nonprofit or get into missionary work or something along those lines, which I did do a few stints of volunteering and missions work, but I never ended up fully quitting the rat race to make that my life. All I knew was that I wanted to help people, but I also had a problem with the idea of money. And what I ended up doing was taking a major pay cut to work as a personal trainer, which was my first step towards learning a lot more about myself. It was around that same time, I think about 26 years old, that I realized that I was coping, that I actually wanted to be successful, that I wanted a family, that I wanted to be able to provide and to provide well for a family and to be the big man. I realized that I love the idea of growth and investing and building. I realize that one of the things that makes me feel the best is the ability to be generous and to help set other people up for success. I was even like that when I was a little kid. I have 5 little brothers and we loved Lego, but my favorite part was setting it all up for my brothers to play. I realized that I was angry that I wasn't where I thought I should be. I was angry because I felt like it wasn't fair, how I felt like I was working my ass off for less than so many other people were simply born with. I was afraid to admit that I was just an average guy. I was afraid to admit that I didn't really know anything. I was afraid that I would fail as a future husband, father, provider, and protector, but in reality, those were all the things that I wanted, and I was just too scared to stand on the edge of that cliff and take a step off. But that is when I jumped, and now looking back, sometimes it's hard not to kick myself because had I applied the things that I know now when I was 19 or 20, I would be laughing straight to the bank like 50 Cent. But we all have to start somewhere, and it matters less where you start. It just matters that you start. So much can be done in a couple of years, and those changes just compound in interest if you stay consistent, physically, financially, spiritually, relationally, emotionally. And there is such a beautiful domino effect or more accurately, a butterfly effect that takes place once you start taking those steps and planting those seeds and creating those ripples. It's like the blinders come off, and for the first time, you can see past your own nose. It's just the getting started that is the hardest part. It's like getting the pedals going on a bike, especially if you have been spinning your tires in the mud for years alone, sinking deeper and deeper and deeper, which is why healthy community and having people who are also driven and making changes in their lives on your team is so powerful, because they are the ones who will help dig you out and cheer you on. But only you can pedal. The first part is the hardest. You've got to be willing to get humble and eat dirt. You've got to be willing to do more than what you think everyone else is or isn't doing. If you're feeling behind, the only way to propel yourself forward to catch up is you've got to do what the average person does every day, and then some more. And you have to make your peace with that. And the crazy thing is, most people feel behind. Most people are in debt. Most people are physically unhealthy. It is easier to get ahead of the crowd than ever before in human history. And the only thing holding you back is you. And you know what? Success is an idea. It's a thing that can only be defined by each individual's interpretation of what it means to them. It does not mean the same thing for everyone. And if you don't define it for yourself, the world will define it for you, and you will spend your life measuring yourself by that definition. And for what it's worth, always remember, if you have one man who has $100 and another man who only has $1, if the man with $1 invests himself and builds that $1 into $10 while the man with $100 just sits on the bill, who is actually more successful between the two? So stop comparing yourself with what you don't have and start compounding what you do. One says that you are not enough, and the other says you are more than enough.